Good morning, guys. In the last session, we learned what is Spring Data REST, what is the difference between REST controller and REST repository. REST controller is only responsible to take HTTP request and give HTTP response to the client. But when you want to simplify, if you want to simplify the REST API development, then we can go for Spring Data REST concept. What is the benefit we are getting with this Spring Data REST concept? Spring Data REST concept is used to simplify our REST API development. That means we can combine REST controller plus JPA repository that will become REST repository resource. REST repository resource means it is used to expose HTTP methods, and at the same time, it can communicate with the database also. We can simplify that REST API development by using this data REST concept. In order to work with Spring Data REST, we need to add one dependency in the pom.xml that is called REST repositories. Then we created one entity class, and the most important part is repository interface. So this is a JPA repository, and we are adding one extra annotation repository REST resource to expose repository methods as HTTP methods. Good. Then we are able to perform all the CRUD operations. But when you go for this REST repository concept, security issues will come. So users can delete the data and update the data also. In order to stop that, we need to configure REST configuration here. By using this REST configuration, we are able to block put method and delete method. So anyone can access only get and post methods from our REST API. They cannot send put and delete methods. Like this, you can block post method also, get method also you can block. So which methods you want to expose, only expose those methods, and remaining methods you no need to expose. And after that, I have given one assignment, how to send asynchronous request by using web client. As we discussed earlier, in the Spring Boot, we can develop REST client in two ways. One is by using REST template. Second one is by using web client. If you go for REST template, that supports only synchronous communication. Let me go through that point. Somewhere we have written that. Yeah, REST template. This is a predefined class in the web MVC. By using this class, we can send HTTP request. That means this REST template class is used for consumer development. So we are having several methods here. Here it supports only synchronous. What is the meaning of only synchronous? What is the meaning of only synchronous, guys? Once our application send any request, once our application send any request to the provider, assume that this is my consumer application. Assume that this is my consumer application. This application sending a request to
when our request
provider
is sending,
application.
until response we are waiting.
Yeah. So here my consumer application is available. My consumer application sending a request to the provider, then provider giving response back to me. So if you observe here, if I am having some lines of code, when I send a request from the line number 2, so this line number 2 will execute. Then after, my thread will block its execution. My program will not continue the execution until we get the response from the provider. For example, if a provider is taking 30 seconds to execute the request, then consumer will be blocked for 30 seconds. Consumer will be blocked for 30 seconds. That is called synchronous request. Now, in my application, my requirement is I want to access 3 providers, guys. These 3 providers are independent for me. These 3 providers independent for me. From my application, access first provider, access the first provider, then access the second provider, then access the third provider. So this provider is taking 30 seconds. Okay. This provider is taking 30 seconds. This provider also taking 30 seconds of time. So this application is consumer application. Consumer is accessing 3 provider applications. This is provider 1. This is provider 1 and this is provider 2 and this is provider 3. 3 applications are available. When I send first request, my consumer should wait for 30 seconds. Then it will get the response from the first provider. Then send the second request to the second provider. Again wait for 30 seconds. Then send the request for third provider. Again wait for 30 seconds. So 30, 30, 30 total 90 seconds, around 1.5 minutes. My consumer will be waiting to get the final response. So now, suppose if you go for any application, will you wait for 1.5 minutes to get the response? As an end user, will you wait for 1.5 minutes to get the response? If application is taking 1.5 minutes to give the response, that is the worst performance of the application. So here, excuse me. Here, as the 3 providers are independent, we no need to wait for the response. Send all the 3 requests at a time. After sending the first request, without waiting for the response, we should be able to send the second request and third request also. That means my thread should not wait. My thread should continue its execution. If my thread should continue its execution, we need to go for asynchronous block execution. By default, every Java program will execute as a synchronous block. That means after one line is executed, if the request is sent, it will wait for the response. After getting the response, then only it will continue. Then again send the request, wait for the response. Then only it will continue. That is called synchronous communication. When you go for synchronous communication, unnecessarily consumer waiting period is increasing. When the consumer waiting period is increasing, end users will not like our application. To avoid this problem, Spring came up with a concept called asynchronous communication. That asynchronous communication we can implement by using web client. We can implement that by using web client. Now, so here, when you go for asynchronous communication, my application will send a request, but my application will not wait for the response. My application will complete the execution. After 30 seconds, a response will come. Whenever the response comes, then my application will handle that response by using some subscriber. Okay. Now I will send a request. I will not wait for the response. After some time, response will come from the provider. Then I need to handle the response. So we need to develop that asynchronous communication. To develop that asynchronous communication, we cannot go for REST template. REST template will not support for asynchronous communication. That's why in the Spring 5.x version, they introduced web client. Using web client, you can perform both synchronous communication as well as asynchronous communication also. Already we implemented synchronous communication by using web client in the Make My Trip application. Now we need to understand asynchronous communication by using web client. Let me create one new project. File new Spring Starter project. File new Spring Starter project. So project name I'm giving as something like 41 web client app. Okay. I want to access some REST API. If I want to go with that asynchronous communication using web client, what dependency I need to use, guys? We need to use Webflux dependency. If you want to use a REST template, web dependency is sufficient. But if you want to go for web client, then you need to select a dependency called reactive web dependency. Reactive web dependency, nothing but it is Webflux. Web starter, Webflux starter will be available. Now, let us select this reactive web, click on next, click on finish. So the 41 project is getting created here. Perfect. Yeah. So project is created. This is our start class. Entry point for boot application, new class. I'm creating one service. Okay. So here, let me take it as code service. Let us make it as service. Service. Okay. Let us write one method, public void get code v1. Get code v1. I want to get the random codes from third party API. So in the evening JRTP class, we discussed that we need to access one random code API. So let us use the same API URL. Let's go to that project. Let me get that URL. Third party REST API URL. Yes, this is our third party REST API URL. Access this. This REST API is giving some response in the JSON format. Let us go here. Let us access that same API. Okay. Private, static, final, string, quote, endpoint. Right. So this is third-party REST API URL, which will give the data in the JSON format. Now I want to access this API. I want to access this API. In order to access that API, I will go for web client. Web client is a class or web client is a interface. REST template is a class, but web client is a interface. So let us get the object for the web client. Web client is equal to new web client we can do. They provided one factory method which is called create. When you call web client.create method, it will provide implementation class object for the web client interface. Using that implementation object, we can perform both synchronous request as well as asynchronous request also. Web client.create method I am calling. Then next, we are going to use client.get. Client.get. What is the meaning of client.get? What is the meaning of client.get? Client.get means I want to send a get request. I want to send a get request. Good. Client.get dot URI. URI means to which URL you want to send a get request. This is my URL. I will call this URL as a endpoint. Endpoint nothing but REST API URL. So let me take this URL dot. If you want to send any header, whenever we are sending a request, we can send accept header. We will send content type header. What is the meaning of accept header? I want to get the response in JSON format, or I want response only in the XML format. So already this API giving the data in the JSON format only. So sending the header is required or not required? Not required. If you want to send it, there is a method available to send the header. Currently it is not required. Now client.get.uri, then dot retrieve, then dot body to mono. What is the meaning of body to mono? I want to map that response to one string variable. I want to map that response to string variable. Then what it is going to return, guys? It is going to return mono of that body to string response. Got my point? So this is the logic that we are using to send the request. Now observe system.out.println REST API call completed. Okay, REST API call completed. Let me print this system.out.println body to mono. Body to mono dot block. What is the meaning of dot block? We are making sure that that is going to wait for the response that we are getting from the REST API. Okay, let me call this a service method. It is Spring Bean. How do we get that Spring Bean object, guys? Run dot get bean code service dot class. We got this. Then next bean object we got bean dot get quote v1. I'm calling my service method. What is the logic in the service method? Inside the service method, we have a logic to access third-party REST API by using web client. Web client dot get dot URI dot retrieve dot body to mono. What is the meaning of dot get? What is the meaning of dot get? Dot get is used to get the response. It is used to get the response. So to send a get request by using given URL, once we send a get request, what it is returning? It is returning some JSON response. Then I want to store that JSON response into one string variable. For that, what is the method? Body to mono. Then we are calling body to mono dot block method REST API call completed. So here I'm going to write the logic. REST API call started, REST API call completed. Okay, now observe. Let's run this and check it. Right click, run as boot application. Okay, server port I need to change. Already Oracle database running in this system. So let me change server.port to some different value. 8081. Refresh our application. Start class, run this project. Run the boot application. Now, what is happening here, guys? What is happening here? Observe. It is working with the synchronous communication or it is working with the asynchronous communication. Observe. I will show you practically. See, here my REST API call is starting. Here my REST API call is starting. After the REST API call is started, immediately this line is printing. After getting the response, this line is printing. After getting the response, this line is printing. What is the meaning of that? This method is waiting. This thread, whatever the thread is running my method, that thread will be blocked here. After sending a request, the request is going to third-party API. So it is a network call. From my system, a request is going to another system where this API is running. This is third-party API. We don't know where is that server which is running this API. Maybe in the US, maybe in the UK. We don't know that. That is a third-party API. Two applications are communicating. My application is communicating with a third-party application. This is called web service communication. One application communicating with another application. Do we know this application developed by which technology? I know only URL. I need to send a GET request. I'm getting the data in the JSON. Whether it is Java application or Python or Node.js or .NET or PHP, I don't know. Because that is developed by some other company. We don't know which company also. It is a free URL available in the internet to use for the developers. So any developer want to learn consumer development, ready-made REST API is available for us. Now observe. I'm going to run this once again. See the console. You see the console. REST API call started. After REST API call started, it is waiting for 1 second. The thread is waiting for 1 second. Why it is waiting for that 1 second? Network call is going. After network call, it should block the execution, wait for the response. After getting the response, then it is printing that response, then only this line is executed. Okay, suppose if I comment this line, then what should happen, guys? After sending a request, immediately this line should be executed. But observe, is it executing that line immediately or not? See the console clearly. REST API call started. So that means in that period, that response, it is going for that. Now, when I access that body to mono dot to block, when I block it, that means I am waiting for the, I am making web client as a synchronous by using that block method. Now observe once again clearly. Send the request. See the console. Call started, waiting. Then it is a continue. That means that 1 second gap is called synchronous communication. Are you clear? Now, I don't want to wait for the response. I don't want to wait for the response. I want to make it as completely asynchronous. I want to make it as completely asynchronous client. That means in order to make this as asynchronous client, let me write one more method. Let me give this method name as V2. V1 means synchronous, V2 means asynchronous. Now, let me remove this. Let me remove this body to mono. After this body to mono, I'm going to write one method called subscribe method. So here, two things are available. One is block. Another one is subscribe. What is the meaning of block here? Block means make it synchronous. Whatever the REST call you made, whatever the request you sent, you wait for the response. After getting the response, then you continue your execution. That is the meaning of block method. But here in the V2 method, I am not calling block method because it is synchronous call. I am calling subscribe method. I'm calling subscribe method. Subscribe method is taking consumer as a input. Subscribe method is taking consumer as a input. What is the meaning of that consumer? It is a Java 8 functional interface. Java 8 functional interface. Consumer, it will take the input. It will not return any output. Okay. Now here what I will do is I will use code service colon handle response. I'm calling one method. Code service dot handle response. This method is not available. So we need to create this method which is responsible to handle our response. Let me write that method public static void handle response, which will take string s as input system.out.println of yes. Okay. Now, see the logic here. Earlier, what we have done, body to mono, I am mapping to string.class, then I am calling block method. What is the meaning of block method? Wait for the response. But now, after mapping to the mono string type, am I calling the block method? Am I calling the subscribe method? What is the meaning of subscribe? What is the meaning of subscribe? We are telling to web client, boss, after making this request, subscriber is available to handle the response. You don't wait for the response. You continue your execution. You no need to wait for the response. This method will take care of the response. Handle response method. After REST call is completed, then after some time, response will come. Then the response will be taken care by this method. Let's observe. Now let me call V2. Earlier we called V1. Now I am calling V2. See the result. Run this application. Check it. Now when the response is coming, guys, here when the response is coming, is it waiting for the response? Now see, when I call this method, this line will be executed. Then here it is sending the request. This line is printing after getting the response or before getting the response? Before getting the response. That means thread is waiting for the response. Thread is not waiting for the response. Thread is not waiting for the response. After getting the response, what happened? After getting the response, this subscriber is executed. Subscriber will listen to the response given by the provider. When the response comes from the provider, subscriber method will be executed. So that is the reason if you see the output order, REST API call started, REST API call completed. That means Here the order of execution, first this line is executed, call started, then request is sent. After sending the request, it is not waiting. Immediately it is executing the next line. REST API call completed. Then after some time, response is coming. Who is printing the response on the console? Response printed by handle response method. It is our user defined method. What we are telling to the web client, hey web client, I am subscribing for the response by using my method. You continue your execution. Whenever response comes, you call my method. That is the meaning of that. But if it is a synchronous communication, block. You send the request, you wait for the response. Once you get the response, then only continue. The waiting period will be available in the synchronous communication, whereas waiting period, that blocking period will not be available in the asynchronous communication. So using web client, you can perform both the synchronous communication as well as asynchronous communication. Which one is recommended? Depends on the situation. If you want to make two calls, if second call depends on the first call response, go for synchronous only. If both are independent, then go for asynchronous communication. Look at this. Here, block, waiting for the response. Here, subscribe, don't wait for the response. So practically you can see the output. If this line is executed after printing the response, then it is called as synchronous. But after sending the request, immediately this line is executed. After 1 second or 2 seconds of time, response is printed. That means thread is not waiting for the response. That is the proof for that. Run it once again. Here my start class is available. Inside the start class, I'm calling get quote v2. v2 method is a asynchronous method. Run this. See the console. What happened? What is the order of execution? Call started. Call, but actually, where is this line available? After the call, that line is available. Why that line is printed first? Before response, why that line is printed? Not waiting. The thread is not waiting. Send the request, proceed the execution, proceed the execution. When response comes, subscriber is available. So subscriber input, consumer. What is consumer? Consumer will take the input, will perform the operation. Consumer is a predefined functional interface in the Java 8. It will take only input, no output. Then what I am doing with this consumer? In this consumer, I'm taking this, whatever the JSON is coming as the output. I'm giving that JSON as the input for this method. I am printing that response here. So after this, you can write any logic, whatever the logic you want to do with the response. For example, I want to store that response into my database table. I want to send that response to Apache Kafka. Any kind of operation you want to do with the response, you can do that by using subscriber method. This is the task I have given yesterday. Method V1, method V2. V1 is acting as a synchronous client. V2 is acting as a asynchronous client. If you go for REST template, only this is possible. If you go for REST template only, this is possible. By using REST template, you cannot perform this operation. That's why people are saying REST template is outdated. Whatever you can do using REST template, same thing can be done by using web client also, and some extra benefit also we are having with the web client. Are you able to understand? Now, in the interview, they may ask a question. When you are making web service call by using web client, how do you send headers in the request? How do you send headers in the request? How do we send headers in the request? Data header. So what is the header? I'm using accept. What is the meaning of accept, guys? What is the meaning of what is the difference between accept and content type? We have seen two headers, right? One is a accept header, another one is a content type header. What is the accept header? What is the accept header? It is used to tell to the provider what format we are expecting. In which format we are expecting the output from the provider will be represented by accept header. Then what is the content type? What is the content type? In which format we are sending the data to the provider? Okay, are you in which format you are sending body? Are you sending JSON data in the body? Are you sending XML data in the body? We will represent that. Here, in this scenario, do I have a body? In this scenario, am I sending any data in the body? I'm not sending any data in the body. So content type is required. Content type is not required here. Content type is required or content type not required? Content type is not required. We are only getting the data. In which format they are giving the data? JSON format. So setting this header is mandatory or optional here? Optional here. Okay, let's try this with this header. Any difference that is there? Any difference? Why there is no difference? They are already giving JSON. Whether you tell it or you don't tell it, they are giving JSON data only. Let's try by asking XML, application/XML. I'm expecting the response in the XML format. Okay, so XML, can we guarantee that we will get the XML? It depends on the provider. Whether provider supporting or not supporting, we don't know. Whether provider supporting for the XML or not supporting for the XML, we don't know. If they support for the XML, then we can get it. If they don't support for the XML, then we cannot get it. So providing the response in the XML format, in the JSON, supporting for both formats, it is whose choice? Provider choice. It is a provider choice whether we need to provide the response in the XML format or JSON format or both. JSON already proved they are supporting for JSON. I am trying to get the data in the XML. Let us see if they support, we will get it. If they don't support, we cannot get that. Now stop the server and access this. Request completed. Yes. Now, when I said this, what is happening now? Is it coming in the XML format? No. Why? Provider not supporting for that. By default, they are giving the data in the JSON format only. Even though we are asking for the XML, they are not supporting for that data. Are you guys able to understand? Good. So here we are setting header application/JSON, but it is optional. If you want, you can set it. Otherwise, you can ignore that. No problem. When you are sending post request, put request with the body, then you can send content type header also to tell in which format you are sending the request and in which format you are getting the response. Accept header and content type header. This is the logic that we need to implement in our second mini project in the JRTP. So in the dashboard, we need to access a random code from the third-party API. So if you send this request, we are going to get the random codes. List of codes are coming. From that, we need to pick up one code and we need to display in the UI. Cool. Look at this logic. Sending asynchronous request by using web client. Did anybody try this yesterday? Did anyone try this? No? So guys, after this class is completed, project batch people, all of you come here and create that project. Okay, yesterday I have given all the analysis. Before coming to the class, you need to be ready with the setup. I will not do the setup in the class. It's waste of time. I will do that after the classes are completed. In the class, in the evening class, we will start the coding directly. So you should have that setup ready. So don't neglect your practice. It's very important. Perfect. So we completed our discussion related to asynchronous communication by using web client, synchronous and asynchronous. Asynchronous client development. Perfect. So here, as of now, we completed multiple modules in our boot and microservices, right? First, we understood what is Spring, Spring overview, Spring framework. Spring is an application development framework which supports all layers development in the project. End-to-end application can be developed by using our Spring framework. Then next one, we learned Spring core module. What is the main purpose of core module? What is the main purpose of core module? It is providing the fundamental concepts of the Spring framework. What is the meaning of fundamental concepts? IOC container, dependency injection, bean lifecycle, bean scopes, auto wiring. These are the basic concepts in the Spring. Without those concepts, there is no Spring, there is no Spring Boot. The fundamental concepts are provided by Spring core module. Then after, we learnt about Spring Data JPA, which is used to simplify. Data JPA is used to simplify persistence layer development. What is the meaning of persistence layer? Database communication. CRUD repository available, JPA repository available. You no need to write much logic. You no need to write much logic to perform CRUD operations. It will be taken care by data JPA. We learnt CRUD repository, JPA repository, predefined methods, find by methods, custom queries by using this Spring Data JPA. Then we understood what is Spring Web MVC. We understood what is Spring Web MVC. What is Spring Web MVC? It is used to develop web application with the user interface. So C2B, if you want to develop any if you want to develop any C2B application, customer to business communication with the user interface, then you can go for WebMVC. In this WebMVC, we used Timeleaf for the presentation layer development. Then we learned about REST API. We learned about REST API. Okay, REST API. REST API. REST API is used to develop B2B application. It is used to develop C2B application. In the REST API, we learnt about two actors. One is provider, another one is consumer. The application which is giving the services to other application is called provider. The application which is accessing the services is called consumer. This provider and consumer will communicate. Provider and consumer will communicate by using HTTP protocol. Get, post, put, delete methods will be available, and consumer and provider should be interoperable. To make them interoperable, we can use XML data or JSON data to transfer. One application will send XML, another application will send JSON. Provider will take XML, provider will take JSON, because both XML and JSON are interoperable. But XML is a heavyweight. You see, if I want to represent one ID in the XML, ID 101, ID close. But if I go for JSON, how can I represent ID? Directly like this. Which is occupying more memory? XML. XML will occupy more memory. That's why XML is called heavyweight. Okay. So to overcome the memory problems with the XML, people are going for JSON. Nowadays, JSON is more famous than XML in the market. Long back, when the JSON was not there, people used to work with the XML. But when the JSON came into picture, every technology supporting for the JSON. So that's why we are using JSON data as a mediator between consumer application and provider application. Along with this REST API, we learnt Swagger. Swagger is used to generate documentation for the REST API, and Swagger is providing UI also to test our REST API. Swagger is providing UI also to provide our REST API. Perfect. Then we have seen consumer development, synchronous client, asynchronous client. REST template is available and web client is also available. There is another approach to develop the consumer, that is called FIAN client. That FIAN client we are going to learn in the microservices concept. Okay, so we completed these modules so far. What else is pending? The pending part, we need to learn about microservices. We need to learn about Spring security, Spring batch, microservices, Spring security, Spring batch, some tools available like Redis, Kafka, some tools that we need to learn which we are using in the market. These topics are pending in our Spring Boot microservices classes. Okay. So you see what we learned as part of this asynchronous client development, and we learned about Spring Data REST concept. Spring Data REST is used to simplify our REST API development. Then we learned about accept and content type headers. Accept and content type headers available. Consumer will send these headers to the provider. Accept means I want data in the XML. I want data in the JSON. Content type, I'm giving you JSON, I'm giving you XML. Content type will represent request body format. Accept will represent response body format. Then we are able to work with XML data in the REST API. We can use JSON data as well as XML data. Both are interoperable in the market. But when you compare XML and JSON, JSON is more famous in the market nowadays. Then we understood how to handle exceptions in the REST API, exception handling. So when our REST API is executing, there is a chance of getting the exception. That exception we need to handle, and we need to convey that exception to the client in the proper format. So that's where we are implementing global exception handling, web client and REST template, make my trip application development. This make my trip application UI we developed. In that UI application, consumer application, we accessed the IRCTC provider. That make my trip we developed with the REST template as well as with the web client also. We are able to send get request to get the all tickets. We are able to send post request to book the ticket also. Consumer and provider communication. IRCTC API development. Provider we developed. That provider we deployed in the AWS cloud also for the public access. Swagger, which is used for documentation purpose as well as testing for the REST API. Postman is also available. That is a tool which is used to test our REST API functionality. For the REST API, no UI. There is no UI. So in order to test our functionality working as expected or not, you can go for Postman or you can go for Swagger UI. Okay. Consumes and produces. These are called media types. These media types will tell that in which format API method can accept input, API method can provide output. Consumes represents input data supporting input data formats. Produces will represent output data supporting formats. Then we have seen request body annotation. What is the meaning of request body? To capture the data from the request body to our method as an input. Consumer sending JSON in the request. I want that JSON data in the form of Java object to my method as a parameter. Then we will use that request body annotation. Then what is path variable? Any data which is coming in the URL, to read that data we will use path variable. Request param is used to capture query parameters coming in the URL. API methods, get, post, put, delete. These are famous REST API methods we will use in our projects. Get method to get the data, post method to send the data, put method to update, delete method for deleting the record. Then next one, REST controller. REST controller nothing but It is the combination of controller plus response body, which is used to handle B2B communication. So if you have a REST controller, other application can send the request for our application. HTTP protocol methods and status codes. 2x, two category is there. 200 category success, 300 for redirection, 400 for client error, for 400 category. 500 category, it is a server error. As a developer, we need to customize status code based on our requirement. Sometimes 201, sometimes 204, 405, 406, 404, 400. For that, we are going to use response entity. By default, boot will give 200, 500. 200 means success, 500 means error. If you want to customize that status code, we need to use response entity as a return type. Then Jackson. What is the Jackson? Jackson is a third-party API. Jackson is a third-party API which is used to convert Java object to JSON and JSON to Java object. In the Spring Boot, it is internal implementation. We no need to convert that. Consumer side, we no need to convert. Provider side also, we no need to convert. Boot is internally using Jackson API to perform conversions. Object will be converted to JSON. JSON will be converted to object. JSON stands for JavaScript object notation, which is lightweight. So it will represent the data in the key value format. What is interoperability? What is the meaning of interoperability, guys? Interoperability, nothing but irrespective of the technologies, two projects can communicate. Java project can communicate with .NET, .NET can communicate with Python, Python can communicate with Node.js, Node.js will communicate with Java, Angular will communicate with Java, React can communicate with Java. Like that, interoperability is available. REST API architecture we have seen, provider and consumer. Can one provider have multiple consumers? Yes, IRCTC, one provider, Make My Trip, Yatra, these all are the consumers for IRCTC. Okay, can one consumer access multiple providers? Can one consumer access multiple providers? Yes, one consumer can access multiple providers also. Can consumer also act as a provider? Yes. So in my project, I will give one REST controller and I will write other logic to access third-party API. One project can do both also, right? So one project can behave like a provider as well as it can behave like a consumer. Now see IRCTC. So for Make My Trip, IRCTC is a provider. For bank, IRCTC is a consumer. IRCTC playing both roles, guys. So it is giving services to Make My Trip and it is accessing services from the banking applications. So it can act as a consumer as well as provider. So what is a distributed application? If one project is communicating with the another project, then it is called as a distributed application. The best example, full stack applications also called as distributed application. Front end will be in the Angular or React. Back end will be in the Spring Boot. Angular application will communicate with the Spring Boot application. Those are also called as distributed applications. Got it? Fine. I'm giving this service, which is asynchronous client development. Yes. So I have given the logic for this, guys. Correct. Hey guys, can you check it? I have updated the notes also. Are you guys able to access this? For both JRTP and Spring Boot, I have updated these notes, guys. Please check that once. Completed? Yep. Any questions? Anyone from the rest classes? Online people? Can you raise your hand? Who is having a just listen to their questions, guys. Anybody who is having questions, please raise your hand. Yeah, Gani, what is your question?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
My question is like you haven't covered the bean validation in Spring Boot. Are you going to cover or
Yes,
not?
sir. We'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Like it's part of Spring Security or what?
No, general will take one class for that. Whenever we get the request, right? Whether all the values are coming in the request or not, we can validate it.
Okay, sir. Thank
Okay.
you.
Association mapping is
Hmm.
also pending. That we will cover.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yes. Anyone else having any other question? You guys can unmute your mic and you can ask me, online people.
Hello, sir. Can I see the main method?
Your voice is very low, sir. Could you please
Can
speak
I
loudly?
can I see the main method of this project?
Main method. In the main method, guys, we are just getting the object of the service bean, and from that service bean, we are calling the methods. That's it. So when we call the method, that method will send a request to third-party API by using web client. One method is sending synchronous request. Another method is sending asynchronous request. This class logic also I have given in the notes. So this is the logic. How to send asynchronous request by using web client. Okay, cool. Soap and rest. Okay, sir, I will explain that. Now,
No, you have explained
RabbitMQ also in microservice.
We are not covering RabbitMQ. We are covering Apache Kafka. Kafka
Okay.
is more advanced than RabbitMQ.
Okay. Okay.
Hello, sir. Can we cover on servlet handling?
Servlet?
Yeah.
Servlet. Why servlet?
So servlet handling for, let's say, in my existing project, there are some servlets. So how to convert that servlet into the Spring Boot?
No, sir. We are not going to cover that.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Can you cover event-driven architecture?
Yeah, that is Apache Kafka, sir. Whatever that you are asking, in the Apache Kafka, we are going to understand event-driven architecture with the Saga design pattern.
Also CQRS design pattern.
We'll see some design patterns, that circuit breaker pattern we are going to cover. So we'll cover some patterns for that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, cool.
Hello, sir. When this course will be finished, sir?
When this course will be finished. So another 20 to 25 days. This weekend I will take some extra session also, because we got some holidays, right? This Sunday also we will have a session. So within 20 to 25 days, we will finish this syllabus. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Fine. Yeah.
And a new batch.
New batch. So I will give my schedule by today or tomorrow, sir. My new batches. One more Spring Boot batch will come. DevOps batch will come. Project batch will come. 3 batches I have to start. So I will announce the dates by today or tomorrow.
Sir, you
But
don't.
this batch is possible for the same timing after this course.
Same timing. In the same timing, another project batch will come.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll check the schedule, madam. Schedule is not yet finalized. I will check and I will confirm. Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Hello, sir. Good morning, sir.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Sir, if we have to do put mapping and delete mapping in consumer side, then it will be possible, na, sir?
I did not get your question. Can you repeat?
Sir, if we have to do get mapping and delete mapping from the consumer side, then we can do it, na, sir?
Yeah. Consumer side also you can write a REST controller that can act as both provider and consumer.
Okay. In
Okay.
both side we have to do. Yes, sir.
Right.
Okay,
Fine,
sir.
guys.
Yes.
From tomorrow onwards, we are going to learn microservices. So next 20 days, very, very important. Don't miss the classes. Microservices topics we are going to start from tomorrow. Thank you. And the project people, please complete the project setup, skeleton, whatever the classes I have given, methods I have given, try to create the project. If you have time, start implementing the service layer methods. You can start from the service layer. Thank you, guys. We'll meet in the evening class.